Everything is fine here on Detention Blog AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Dustin, and hey, we have a new face to the team today. Meet Ben-Bogie, good friend of mine, big Star Wars fan, big Star Trek fan. But don't worry, just because you're a Star Trek fan doesn't mean you can't be a Star Wars fan too. We're all nerds here, so we enjoy movies, we enjoy sci-fi. But just happy to have a new face to the team. I know Dustin and I have been doing a lot of most of the recording as of recently, just because of time and scheduling and kids and everything. It really is challenging to get the whole crew here. So Ben was super gracious enough to join along with us to bring an extra voice, extra opinion to our podcast. So welcome to the show, Ben.
Hey,
Yeah,
Mike,
thank you,
will we
Bud.
consider Ben a prisoner or what?
That's a good point. I think for this first episode, you still need to be a prisoner because,
He's a long-term prisoner, potentially.
yeah,
Might
potentially
be
a
our own
long
inauguration.
Lifetime sentence.
um,
You scum.
but yeah, Ben. So we've had guests in the past, and when we bring them on, they are considered prisoners. We haven't had a guest in a long time, and we really need to bring that back. But that's actually how another one of our podcast members, Zach, he became.
Who?
Yeah, we haven't seen his face in a while, so. But that's how he joined. He was first a prisoner, and then he enjoyed it and wanted to stay on a little more full time. So, but yeah, so I just first want to start out welcoming you and giving you a little opportunity to tell us who you are, hobbies. It's Trekkie fan. Dustin's shaking his head no. Um, but yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to join.
Yeah, when I
Oh,
met
he
you,
didn't have a choice. He's a fucking prisoner.
um, yeah, I guess met you Mudge about 2 years ago, like we talked about before. And I found out, along with all of our other common friends, how much we're kind of nerds when it comes to Star Wars, sci-fi, everything. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then we went to that trivia, and then you invited me on here, and I was like, why not? I'll give it a shot. See where we go.
Yeah,
Um,
and mind you, he helped me a lot in getting the placement that I did in that trivia on Star Wars Day. So that was much
and
appreciated.
some of those questions were ridiculous. You gotta,
Really, really tough.
yeah. Some of them didn't even relate to Star Wars, like hardly, but
Yeah.
that's trivia for you.
Yep. Exactly.
But anyways, yeah, how I started being a big Star Wars fan. Again, it started with as a kid growing up. I have an older brother, and my dad. They were big into Star Trek, so I got really into sci-fi. And just in general, I just love sci-fi movies, anything that has to do with space. If this was a thing where I could go dress up as the Mandalorian and go fly out into space, I would do it. But we're in the times that we are now. But uh, um,
Hey, we can
but yeah,
still dress up like that, though. I
yeah.
mean, I do that, so
Well,
nothing
funny
stopping you there.
funny
Dustin
fact
and
is
Dustin too.
Funny fact is I segue into, my like how I got into Star Wars. Last year, I dressed up as Obi-Wan, and the reason why is because I finally become an Uncle Ben.
Oh.
My sister and her husband had a kid, so I was like, well, now I can dress up as Uncle Ben. I just don't have the gray beard yet, but it's getting there.
Well, that is
Little just for
convenient.
men can't fix.
What was that, Dustin?
See, nothing a little just for men can't fix.
See, I go the full gray. I mean, my color is just losing day by day on my beard. No grays up here though.
We're
Just
down
on the
there.
beard. Well, we're not talking about that. I know we're uncensored, but we're not late night.
So yeah, anyways, to circle back to the beginning of how I adored Star Wars, it had to be when I was 19, was it 1999 when Phantom Menace came out?
Yep.
It was a random summer home. My dad was kind of, I think, in between jobs while my mom was working, and he was just looked to me and my sister and was like, "Want to go see a movie?" And we're like, sure." And lo and behold, we were like, "Oh, we're seeing Star." Like I had no idea really what Star Wars was. And then we saw Phantom Menace, and that movie just blew me away between the pod racing, the lightsaber battles, Darth Maul, all of that just blew me away, and I just got immediately hooked. And then that's when my dad was like, there's other Star Wars movies. I was like, what? So immediately we're going to Video Update. And I'm like, we're renting these. And then it's back when VHS, plug them
Video
in,
Update.
Video Update. Yeah.
Not even
Hollywood
Blockbuster video or Hollywood Video Update.
Video Update. Yeah. So I think probably asked my dad it was always like on like Tuesdays, it was like 50 cent VHS rentals for like old movies. And every Tuesday I was like, can we go rent one? Because then you would have it for a week. So yeah, I remember binge watching New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi so many times on VHS that I'm sure I probably broke one of the VHSs from rewinding it so many times.
So
So
so it was prequel trilogy that you had your first introduction to Star Wars.
yeah, the Phantom Menace. Well, I mean, I guess there's a little backstory more to that. I did see vaguely as a younger kid, like the Star Wars movies when there would just be like thrown on because like my brother had a girlfriend that loved Star Wars and they would have it on, but I had no idea what was going on
Sure.
and until I saw Phantom Menace and then understanding like, oh, these are all related. So, but then I didn't understand the whole concept of like these are prequels and this is the middle three and then the later three. Like I didn't understand that at first because I was like, I always used to see movies like in chronological orders
Sure.
would be released, and I didn't understand that until later on in life. But yeah, but so anyways, going back to Phantom Menace, favorite characters all time is Jar Jar Binks. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I was looking at
You're
Dustin. I
about
was
to get
waiting.
deleted from the
I was
podcast.
I was waiting for Dustin's reaction
It's
on
about to kick you off.
that.
But no,
Well, I
so
think
yeah,
it's cool, by the way, that you're kind of seeing them in passing, notwithstanding that your first experience with Star Wars was Phantom Menace, because I do feel most of the people who saw that who were Star Wars fans were already jaded by some of the things that happened in the movie. So your reaction for someone not really exposed to the movies prior, being like blown away by the movie, because I think people were blown away by the movie in an opposite way
Right.
for those who were like already big Star Wars fans. They're like, what the hell was that?
Especially when it was first coming out. I think now it's like a different story. People have flipped a switch on that, and now it's like so many people out there just consider the OT and the prequel trilogy as Star Wars, and now anything Disney is like, I don't want to, I don't consider that Star Wars. That's what a lot of fans these days are doing. A lot of people will give an exception with Rogue One because a lot of people love the movie Rogue One. But yeah, I agree with your point there, Dustin. Like, I think, and that's different for our podcast because every one of our other members, our introduction to Star Wars was more based around the original trilogy. So it's a fascinating, different perspective. The only thing I have to ask to you, Bogey, on that is, were you spoiled of who Darth Vader was, or because it was just the Phantom Menace, and then you saw you're more focused on the original trilogy, you were able to witness the spin with
so
go
yeah,
ahead.
so yeah, circling back to the what do you want to call it? The Mark Hamill's trilogy. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Um, I knew Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's dad. You didn't know his name was Anakin Skywalker until Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Skywalker thing, and it was funny because my sister outsmarted me because when we we vaguely would watch it. It would be like because long story short, um, when my brother would throw on a movie, me and my sister, he's kind of like what because my brother's you know older than me, just to put it out there. So he was
A neighbor of mine.
yeah, and a neighbor of yours. Um, he was kind of babysitting us and throw a movie in. And we would just kind of, my sister and I would kind of like loosely watch it, fall asleep, whatever, because we're at that age. We're probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years old or whatever. Um, And then we were watching Phantom Menace, and then when the movie was over, because you had that moment of like little Anakin Skywalker, and then my sister goes like, "Is that Darth Vader?" I'm like, "No, this is a," because to me I thought it was a sequel, not a
Yeah.
prequel. So
Mhm.
that's where I got confused until down the road I was like, you got me. You were right. I was wrong."
Your sister
So
bested you.
yeah, she did. And for all the viewers on there, I have a twin sister, so she's the
We got
smarter
our
one of the
own
two.
we got our own Luke and Leia here,
Yeah.
except it's Ben. um, but yeah, so uh, what what was your initial feeling when you saw Phantom Menace? Like, what was it about the movie itself that kind of drew you to enjoying Star Wars?
For sure the beginning, because like I think that was one of the few movies in that era where it just came out with a bang. I mean, now all movies got to have that huge like intro action scene. When you had Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn, and then their lightsaber battle, like that whole scene, I was like, whoa, I'm hooked now. And because you're used to, because when I remember seeing vague moments here and there of the Mark Hamill trilogy, to say like the lightsaber and everything was just so, but I get it now what George Lucas
Hmm.
waited to do this because he wanted like it was going to lead to the Clone Wars and the CGI and all that. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that is awesome. And then only to like later on, you like look at the lightsaber battles versus Phantom Menace, and you see that, and you're like, whoa, that's awesome. So that really captivated me. And then you get, Darth Maul reveal of a double lightsaber for the first time. It was just mind blowing.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
and then on top of all of that, just seeing like kind of the athletic abilities of the Jedi, especially like Obi-Wan Kenobi and that Phantom Menace, and then throughout the rest of that trilogy, it was just mind cap like just cooked you in, sucked you
Yeah.
in, to say
Yeah,
the least.
and that's a good point because, like what you said, I mean, in the original trilogy, or as you put it, Mark Hamill's trilogy, um, not really too athletic in the saber fighting. Maybe a little bit in Return of the Jedi, but even that was kind of, you know, but you definitely got to see a lot more action in the saber fighting as with the prequels, and arguably the best saber duel in all of Star Wars came from that with the Duel of the Fates. I would even
I
put
don't
that.
know. Obi-Wan versus Anakin.
I was just
It's
gonna say
that's 1A, 1B.
I would even put it over the Sky or Anakin and Kenobi one. And I won't say the only reason, but the main reason for me is because Phantom Menace came out first, and it was just boom, like
Fact.
this is what we can do now with CGI and special effects and saber dueling. It's like, wow, this is a huge jump from where we came with the original trilogy. Now you mentioned Clone Wars, so Dustin, give Ben your 2-minute elevator pitch for why he should watch all of the Clone Wars animated show.
Because the ending is gonna blow your mind more than seeing the dual lightsaber from Darth Maul. Like what they are able to accomplish because of it's animated, it's just incredible. You really have to now. Okay, this is not part of my elevator's pitch, but just the reality. You have to get through the first season because it is
Yeah.
a brutal, right? With the droids going, Roger, Roger. I'm just like, oh my God, if they see this one more time. The first season is really cartoony, definitely more for kids. And then it starts getting really dark. And yeah, towards the end, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but you get some of the most memorable lore information and epic battles towards the end. So highly, highly recommend. And just some cool little, I mean, every episode's got a little cool little lore bit. And they're short, very easy to digest. They're like 20 minutes. You know,
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought they were like 40, 45 minutes long.
Mm-mm.
That's so it's just like the Jedi Tales, right?
Tales
Yeah.
of the Jedi, just like
Short
that.
like
Jedi
that.
Tales, yeah, Tales of the Jedi are a little bit shorter because Tales of the Jedi, I think, is like 15-minute
I don't
episodes.
know, like 13 or 14.
Yeah, something like that. where Clone Wars really hits like that 22-minute mark, if I want to be precise. I want to say on average 22 minutes per episode. But I mean, I echo everything Dustin said. And when he was a roommate with me, that's something that we watched together. And I really encouraged him to watch all seven. Well, I don't think the seventh season was out yet. I think it was the first six.
Yep.
And to his point, he said, the first season, it was really tough. And I'm like, just push through it. It will get a lot better. And sure enough, I think he'll agree it's some of the best Star Wars content that's currently out there. And then,
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the same with Rebels. The difference with Rebels and Clone Wars. So Clone Wars, you really jump around. I mean, it's the Clone Wars. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of species. There's a lot of systems that are impacted by this, and they kind of touch on a lot of the most important ones. So it's kind of like Game of Thrones style, where you're jumping from, different location to different location, different story to different story. Where Rebels, same impact, same great lore and great storytelling, but it's more focused on this certain group, these rebels and two Jedi, Kanan and Ezra. And I mean, again, you get some of the most iconic moments out of the show Rebels as well. And so how much of both of those shows have you seen? I know maybe just a few. You've been spoiled on some of what happens, but
Yeah, I think like there's like episodes here and there I've either come across through like YouTube, and then all of a sudden like I'm watching it, I'm like, well, I feel like I just watched a whole episode.
yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of it I have been spoiled, just like I said, through social media, uh, you know, TikTok, Facebook, whatever will show all of a sudden be a clip, and I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever watch the show, but I'm intrigued because I also see Darth Maul, for example, or I see for Rebels, I see Ezra because I watched the Ahsoka series
Mhm.
just to get a better understanding of that character. So I got to see a little bit of his background. So a lot of it, I feel like I've been spoiled quite a bit, but yet it's intrigued me to want to find the time to sit down and kind of go through all of it because I've heard the same thing. I think one of my college roommates said like you had to watch Clone Wars. He said first season's a little rough, but he said when you get through it, it just keeps getting better and better and better, and it has more of a really abides to like an adult theme to the cartoon. It's not cheap because at first I thought maybe it would be like a kid's cheesy cartoon version of Star Wars,
That's
when
the first
in
season.
fact that's not even true at all, is what I've
Yeah.
been told. So
Yeah.
sorry, Dustin, were you gonna say something?
I'm just saying that the first season is that. Like, that's why it's so hard to get through because you can tell they're catering to a younger audience. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Star Wars too, is like a lot of people that are getting into it, we're not getting into it, but that are critiquing the content that is coming out now. We're older, right? We're not like our sense of wonder has changed so much. And I think that's probably a big part of why some of the newer stuff hasn't been as well received, among other things. But yeah, I'm sure, spoiler alert, Maul lives.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I
I'm
mean,
like,
see, which I was telling Mudge before when he was going to invite me on the show. I was like, if there's going to be one movie I do not like, it's Han Solo. But I like the reveal at the end. It got you hyped to think, you know, Maul's going to return, but then I'm sure that's going nowhere.
Well, and you were probably like, why is this character here? Or why
Yeah,
is Maul there?
yeah. But
one
I
thing I'll say
did
about
know.
Clone Wars, because I think there's a lot of episodes per season, so that's can kind of be the slog.
Yeah,
But
there's like 23 episodes or something.
they're kind of like like X-Files or some of the Mandalorian episodes where it's like creature of the week, where there's like really no lore implications. I wish like someone would like mark, okay, here's that. If you want to learn some cool lore, here are the episodes to go watch. Maybe we'll do that, Mudge, and that'll boost our channel presence. But I do think there are some definite episodes you can skip, but you learn so much, right? You learn
Mhm.
about Anakin and his time as a Jedi, because you really don't get to see that, even in the prequel series, right? You see him for a little bit, but then he becomes impetuous and turns to the dark side pretty quickly, or at least you kind of feel that's coming. this you really get to see him as a Jedi. So that's really cool. You get to get introduced to characters. I think Ahsoka is in Clone Wars, right? Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nips. So I mean, obviously she's a beloved character in the universe right now, and she's amazing. Like, you want to talk about creating a strong
character development
without shoving it down your throat? Like, that's like perfect.
Because Dustin, how did you feel about Ahsoka when you first was watching?
She was annoying.
And how do you feel now?
Yeah, she's excellent because they developed her character over that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's okay if you inject a character that people don't like initially. That's okay, and sometimes that's natural. And then you develop that character over the course of now 7 seasons, and that character is beloved because you did such a good job developing that character.
Yep. Yeah, I echo that because I too was completely annoyed by Ahsoka, if I'm being honest, when first seeing her in Clone Wars. And now she's top 5, if not top 3 characters for me of all time in Star Wars. Like when Dustin mentions at the end of Clone Wars, when you get to the end of that,
one of my favorite moments.
Fully understand why, like, she is one of the best characters of all time in Star Wars. And
who likes a teenager at all? Like when first introduced, she's a teenager, right? So that's another thing. Like, kind of unfair because she's a teenager introduced, or at least I don't know in Alien years what that really is.
Wasn't set up for success at first, but long term, she does the job. And would you say, Dustin, that for those people who weren't the biggest fan of the prequels, the show Clone Wars really saved it for them?
Well, I don't know about saving it. Maybe redeeming some of the qualities that you didn't appreciate as much. Because I still think the prequels have so much bad going for them. The acting, the writing, the CGI, the gratuitous CGI use. Not very well written characters. I mean, Jar Jar, my God. So
Misa don't like.
Yeah, Misa don't like Jar Jar. So, to answer your question, I mean, again, it flushes out things that they only reference in the movies, right? And because I think they're like 20 episode seasons, they can really get into the meat and potatoes of the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And it's a really interesting take on what the Jedi are during the Clone Wars and the cost for the galaxy that is pushed upon the citizens when you have these two factions going at it.
Yeah, and I do appreciate towards the end of the last couple of seasons, you get a little bit more of an understanding of the separatist side of the situation, and you start to get a feeling like they're no different than the Republic. So it just plays into like Palpatine's whole puppeteering of everything, because in the prequel trilogies, you're looking at it and be like, oh, the separatists, they're they're part of the bad guys. Like we hate them. We like the Republic and the Jedi, but the separatists are really no different than anyone else out there. And really,
what I would say is you'll come to find when you learn more about me is I love villains and good villains, and they do such a great job with Grievous and Dooku, and I really appreciate that.
And Maul.
Yeah, and then of course Rebels, you have Thrawn, which is to me a top 3 villain in all of Star Wars. So you have Vader number 1, obviously, Palpatine. Somehow he returned. And I would say Thrawn is number 3.
And you would say, from the show Ahsoka, the Thrawn there doesn't quite do the justice as the Thrawn you got in Rebels. I mean, it's still good that we got the same voice and everything, the character appearance and everything. That's fine. But to you, it just didn't seem like the same Thrawn that you got from Rebels. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I read all of the Thrawn books, And in the show, he's making all of these mistakes, and then he's like, "That's just part of my plan." I'm like, it kind of makes you look like a moron, honestly. Yeah, I sent all my fighters out and they got destroyed. All part of the plan, guys. Don't worry.
But I just say that for you specifically, Bogey, because like whatever you thought about the Ahsoka show, whether it be good or bad, the Rebels show is like will do it that much more justice in terms of understanding characters, whether it's Thrawn, Ahsoka, Ezra, Sabine, any of them. Like if you go through the show Rebels, which has one of the most heartbreaking moments in all of Star Wars, in my opinion, I think it was season 4 of that show. That you just gain this like, I don't know, appreciation for all the characters in that. And it just heightens the Ahsoka show a little bit more. Because I will honestly say Ahsoka, if it's its own show, is okay. I mean, it's got its entertaining parts and everything.
I mean, come
but
on, having Hayden Christensen show up, that was awesome.
exactly like that. I
It's
mean,
the little Easter eggs like that saved the show. In all honesty, but I totally get your point. There was moments where I was like, it's kind of falling flat, and all of a sudden that happens. You're like, oh, this is awesome.
Me,
yeah.
there's one person that made that show.
Well,
Who
And
I mean,
was?
come on, I gotta say, Rosario Dawson was a great casting choice for Ahsoka, and I think she's killing it, in my opinion. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that casting choice.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
just find it funny. She was almost like fan casted.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Everyone's like, who would you want to be Ahsoka? I was like, Rosario Dawson. Like,
Yeah. And can we give it up for the young girl who played young Ahsoka? Like,
yeah, she also played she Daphne Keene, is that her name?
yeah. Was she in?
Yeah, she's baby Wolverine.
Yeah. And then
She's
she was also the little
X-23.
girl in the Visions.
No, that's the girl from Acolyte. That wasn't the young Ahsoka.
Okay, sorry.
So maybe
But
I probably missed that episode then. Was she like a young Jedi or something?
in Ahsoka, yeah. So she has. I don't know if you're familiar with the World Between Worlds. Do you know what that is?
Probably not.
I've heard of it. I'm not.
Oh, that's another thing that the Clone Wars and Rebels introduces. Is
Oh,
that
no. Yes, no, yes, I know. Yep. Now when you say it, you bring that up. Yep, I know what it is. Yep.
So in the Ahsoka show, she's like in the water or whatever, and
Yep.
she ends up in the World Between Worlds, and that's where she sees Hayden Christensen, Anakin, and in their little sparring or whatever, he cuts the bridge or the walkway, and she falls, and they end up in the Clone Wars, and she's back at her younger self again. That actress who played a young Ahsoka did a really good job, in my opinion. So, yeah, a lot of those were the redeeming portions of that Ahsoka show. I mean, what's his name? The Balin.
Helen Skull?
Yeah. Why do these guys pass away like right when they have such great casting moments? I think of Heath Ledger when he did
Joker
the Joker, but of course the actor passed away, so they can't continue him at least as that same actor. But
There's a Liam Shriver, I think, would be a really good cast for
I
that.
heard that rumor too, but I mean, they did leave that series with a very ambiguous kind of like where he's going off on his own.
That's why you have to watch Clone Wars, because there's a 3-episode arc that's called the Morbus trilogy, and that explains like all of that.
And I do get some of that part of Star Wars, lore, because I played one of the Star Wars games that talked about the witches and like the whole, that part of the
Survivor?
Yeah, was it the first one? Because what's the
Fallen
second?
Order. First one's Fallen Order. Second one's Survivor.
Okay, so it was the first one is the one I've played so far. Not to mention,
Are you like Mudge, where it takes you like 18 years to finish any book or video game?
what's that?
So he takes like forever to finish anything. And so I'm like, like I've been wanting to talk to Mudge about Survivor for so long. I forgot what the game's even about. It's long.
You're not the only one. I forgot what the game's all about.
Oh, jeez.
Once
Fallen
Once a
Order is
kid,
the only one I've played, and I don't know if I want to play the next one yet because Fallen Order is like a love-hate with that game. I did not give two shits about the Tarzan bullshit you had to do in that game.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying, Dustin or Mudge? You guys played that
yeah,
game,
the
right? Like,
platforming portion.
huh? I didn't catch.
Platforming.
Like the kind of like the obstacle courses, and you're like sliding around, and then you're jumping and you have to time everything right, and then you're running on the walls and everything. I'm like,
you
I just
just
want
want
to
the
fight.
story out of it. You want to play and get the story out of it. Is that what you're
Yeah, I want to
saying?
get the story
You
out of
want to
it, and
kill
then
people. You want to fight and
I'm
all
like, you
that
don't
stuff.
see this in the movies or anything. You don't see them doing Tarzan bullshit. Like, to me, yeah, that was so frustrating for me. How many times I quit playing? All of a sudden, I'm like, I'm done, and then of course, it's Star Wars. I'm like, okay, next day, new me. Let's go at it again.
Pick it up where I left off.
Yeah, only to get really pissed off all over again, doing all the. I don't know if they did that in the Survivor, or the sequel game.
Pretty
I don't
similar.
know.
It's pretty
It
similar,
it
at least what
is.
I've played so far.
So that's why I've been kind of hesitant whenever I'll get around to playing that specific
You
game.
might
So
you might
I
find this hard to believe, Bogey, but there are a lot of masochists who play video games that enjoy that kind of content. It's called platforming.
Platforming. So
Yeah,
what
so
is
like
what's
Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario. Those are all
right.
and on that topic, they did announce that I believe that I don't think they have started yet, but they plan on starting soon the production of the third and final installation of the Jedi video game. So I am excited to play the second one. I mean, again, I have started it once a kid came along. My opportunities to play video games and reading books has kind of slimmed down. But the winter is where I'm able to pick that back up again because I no longer have softball, which I play 2 days a week. So then it's just I have this podcast, and that's pretty much it at that point. So I can play some more video games and read some more books at that time. I swear,
Read
if
some
you
books.
do you have the app Goodreads?
I don't.
Do you have that, Dustin? So it's an app that you can like plug in the books that you've read, and instead of having like a bookmark, you can put the page that you're on so that you can remember where you are next time. Again, that's not necessarily what the app is for. There's reviews and everything for it, but when you finish a book, you can list that. And I swear, in Goodreads, it's January, February, and March where all my books get completed, and then it stops and then picks up again come January. So I will get back into that once the winter hits, because there's nothing really much else to do in the winter here in Minnesota or Wisconsin, where you are now, Dustin,
Or shovel snow.
or shovel snow.
maybe ice fishing or snowmobiling or like what your wife loves to do, snowshoeing.
I hate cold, man. I don't mind snow, but I hate cold.
God, you're a bitch.
Well, I spent 9 years in Texas, and it really thinned my blood. I've got a Midwest heart with Texas blood, I guess. I don't know.
Well, maybe time to move back to Wisconsin.
Oh, I love Wisconsin. That's God's state right there. I know Bogey would probably disagree, but
I've been traveling a lot around Wisconsin. It is a really beautiful state, and I love the little kitschy towns that you drive through.
yeah. And copious amounts of beer everywhere. And cheese stores. Beer and cheese stores.
What's the beer that you guys have? Spotted Cow?
Spotted Cow.
Spotted Cow.
Dustin's not the biggest. Well, you like new
Moon
something
Man.
Moon Man?
Yeah, I just drank so much Spotted Cow because I did love it that I almost got to the point where I didn't love it anymore.
I remember when you first moved in with me, Dustin, your dad, and I shared some Spotted Cow. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my dad and I drove to Wisconsin to pick some up,
That might be right.
so we could impress you.
Well, you impressed me.
I just want to impress you much. Bogey, what part of Minnesota are you in?
So I'm not too far from Mudge. I'm in Blaine, Minnesota.
Yeah, I used to play.
And I grew up. Sorry, go ahead.
I used to play flag football in Blaine.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I've driven to Mudges a lot. It's pretty close to Blaine.
Yeah, because would you consider it Ham Lake, right?
Mhm.
Mudge?
Yeah, if someone asks where you live, I almost am more partial to say Blaine because more people are going to know where Blaine is versus
Ham
Ham
Lake.
Lake,
Yeah.
which
Because
was
I mean,
named
like,
after the lake that looks like a, what do you call the ham when it's on a bone? You
T-bone.
you got like a
Ham
spiral
hock.
ham, spiral ham, is that what you call it? Maybe, I don't know, but the lake looks like that, so that's why they call it Ham Lake.
Very creative.
It's
Start running out of town names. You're like, ah, shit.
Ham
Oh,
Lake.
Evil Lake again.
Ham Lake. Um, all right, well, we'll move on from that conversation. And the other thing I want to kind of speak to was I'm sure everyone has heard the tragic news that was last week, right? We're a little bit behind on that. Yeah, and if you're
It's not
watching
a
our
tragic.
YouTube channel, you see Bogey's holding up a lightsaber that kind of represents that. You don't think it's tragic, Dustin?
He was 93. Like,
That's true. Maybe not tragic. I mean, it's devastating for fans.
I don't even know if it's that. It's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Like, people get so
I
upset.
mean, for
He's
fans
93,
of
people die. Like,
Yeah.
tragic if it was like if he was like in his 50s or 60s. Like, to me that would be more tragic. I say congratulations, you made it to 93. That's a
You
yeah,
did
hopefully
say
we all
that,
can make it there.
right? But of course, we're talking about the passing of James Earl Jones at the age of 93. From what I've heard, he passed peacefully amongst his family. I don't think there was any real like sicknesses or anything that were a part of that. It just, like I said, passed in peace of old age.
yeah, too
Uh,
many birthdays.
too many birthdays. That reminds me of Dane Cook. I think he had a joke that talked about he always laughs if like someone old dies and they're like, "What did they die of?" And he's like, "What did they die of? They're 97 years old." But either way, it is sad that such a legendary Star Wars figure, actor, has passed away. And I don't know what you guys think of it. So I'll ask because I think it was 2 years or maybe a couple of years or something before he passed that I believe he sold the rights to his voice to Disney. I don't know if it was selling it or gave them permission, but it allows Disney to continue the legacy of Darth Vader with the original voice. I'm sure through the use of AI. I mean, if you think of what they did with Tarkin and
Leia.
Rogue One, Leia. So they'll be able to continue to use James Earl Jones's voice in future content, because which tells me they have a plan to do that. And I don't think that's too much of a surprise. But what do you guys think of Disney having the access to James Earl Jones's voice, even though he has passed?
So, first of all, I just want to say I don't think we need any content in that Skywalker era. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure they can come up with some compelling and good stories. I just want to move on to something new, you know? And obviously we have the sequel trilogy, but they just stayed in the Skywalker area and just retold, kind of the same story, really. I just think there's so much more to explore. Bogey, I've talked about this a lot. Like, how cool would it be for them to explore a gray Jedi, right? That doesn't, like this whole concept, like, oh, if you're either Sith or you're a Jedi, like maybe there's something in between that they could explore in the universe that kind of upends that thought process. You know, uh, I think that there's so many stories you could tell based on that, or just expound upon the lore of the Jedi and the Sith. Right, that's what I find particularly interesting. When I played Knights of the Old Republic, my favorite thing to do was go raid the old Sith tombs on, I think it was Korriban,
Mm-hmm.
because I just found it so interesting to learn more about the Sith Lords and like to read like the holocrons and things like that. Um,
It's Dustin loves his villains.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, so a lot of my video game characters are named after the old Sith Lord Nagasato.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's a cool ass name. It's kind of an Egyptian theme too. He kind of had that vibe. And so, anyway, as far as what I think about them reusing his voice, I'm fine with it. You know, it's it's a voice, and if he gave his blessing, then I don't think it's that weird.
Yeah.
It's going to become more common. So I just
Well, I would almost argue it's necessary. I mean, whether it's movie content, I mean, to your point, like let's branch from the Skywalker saga type stuff, but they're still going to be producing video games. They're still going to be producing shows, animated shows that will re-explore some of, the eras that we're familiar with. And you don't want to like undermine the legacy of Darth Vader potentially by bringing in another voice. Now, I think you could still use another voice and get it matched pretty well because I don't even think James Earl Jones has always voiced all the Darth Vader content out there, um but I think it's on also like an homage and an honor towards James Earl Jones by maintaining his voice as that character.
by the way, it's pronounced homage.
Well, you can homage, however you want to put it.
Dare lick my balls.
I'm not going to lick your balls. What about you, Bogey? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, to your point, that's why I was like kind of pointing him like you hit it on the hammer or you hit the nail on the head is that, for different content, for video games, for TV shows, that you got to have that iconic voice. Now, granted, you can probably find someone that could fill in, granted, like Ewan McGregor, I think I was looking up the voice cast for, Clone Wars and whatever cartoons, and it was voiced by someone else, but I've seen clips and it sounds pretty close. So I guess you could find someone, but his voice is just so iconic. And for, Dustin, you're saying you love bad guys. I mean, this guy's got to be one of the top three all-time cinema, if not one, of like
One.
villains. Yeah.
One of one.
I mean,
He
he's
really,
lurking right
I mean, he's
behind you,
number
Mudge, there. Like, I mean, geez, like that. And his voice, I mean, maybe I want to go around the table here and say, like, what are some of the most iconic, like him and like Morgan Freeman, or like it's just like their voices. They could do a narration or something, and you just like, oh, it
Family Guy.
hits it hard, and that's. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I was just say Family Guy spoofs that. Like they have like him like reading bedtime stories or something.
But I don't know, like you guys have like a kind of because I know there's like several movies out there. People could say like Sandlot, uh, Field of Dreams. There's other iconic movies. For me, when I grew up, have you guys ever seen Doctor Strangelove?
No.
No, black and white. What's his name? Uh, guy from looking it up really quick here. But it's about like a old black and white 1968 movie about the world going to shit. Everyone's about to nuke each other. And Slim Pickens from Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
He's the one that he's riding the bomb as he's riding his cowboy
Oh,
hat.
sure. Yeah.
James Earl Jones, that's one of his first movies. And
Mm.
he's the bombardier, and all you can hear the Darth Vader voice in him, and as he's radioing up to the captain of the airplane, bomb day doors, negative function, and like he just sounds like Darth Vader. Like that is just to me when I was watching that, my dad was like, "Oh, you want to watch an old iconic movie I used to like I loved back in the day?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And then I was like probably like 10 years old at the time, and I was like, "That sounds like Darth Vader," and he's like, "Yeah, it is." And then on top of that, iconic. I just hope for sure whatever if the rights have been sold to Disney that the proceeds go to, his family and everything. I hope that's because I don't know about the Grand Moff Tarkin. Like there was questions about whether or not they just kind of stole that and didn't really ask the family or the rights if that was okay.
Wouldn't put it past a big corporation to not pay what's owed to others.
Yeah.
Well, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I kind of looked a little bit, but who can really rely on the internet? So I believe they did get permissions within the United States, but it's the British government that is suing because like there was never a correspondence with England, or I don't know if he's necessarily from England or somewhere in the British Isles, but because he is from that area, they feel like there's a stake in the game from them. So it's the British government, I believe, that is now suing Disney for using his likeness in Rogue One. Again, if that's true or not, I don't know. This is just from like headline reading. So take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, so there is drama behind it and there is some kind of suing going on.
But yeah, to circle back to I it, it's an honor to be able to continue to hear his voice in any continue like future projects that they have with Darth Vader, because he's just like I said, one of the most iconic villains ever in any cinematic, especially a trilogy or more than that, uh, Star Wars lore, you know, and that voice, you just and to go back, have you guys seen the raw footage? It was some like French guy that was dressed up in Vader, and they
Mm-hmm.
had his voice. Have you guys seen that deleted?
Yeah, and he voices yeah from under the mask, so it's kind of muffled a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah.
like what a great choice to like, because it was a George Lucas or someone was like, I don't know if that's gonna work very well because it just like, and then they go find James Earl Jones, and then a good backstory. Do you know he had a speech impediment
George
or what?
Lucas or not George, James Earl
James Earl
Jones.
Jones,
Yeah.
and he overcame that, and all of a sudden he goes into acting, and look at his career now. And then one more bit about James Earl Jones. You guys seen Big Bang Theory?
Yes. Oh yeah.
That scene where Sheldon goes to his table. Oh my gosh, you're a Star Wars fan, and he's like, I like Star Wars too.
And then there's that scene with him and Carrie Fisher where I forget the reason why they go to, is it Carrie Fisher's house they go to where it's Sheldon and James Earl Jones? Do you know which scene I'm talking about?
I'm trying to recall. I haven't
And,
watched all
and
of
Carrie Fisher has like a baseball bat, like she's wants them to get off their yawn and or lawn and whatnot. But I don't know.
Get off your yawn.
Get off your yawn. But I know I've seen clips like the last time Carrie Fisher and James Earl Jones were together was that scene as well. Which I don't know why, but that just made me think of the huge miss of the sequel trilogy that you never brought any of these characters all together in one scene again. Like you had Carrie Fisher still, you had Mark Hamill, you had Harrison Ford, and you don't have one shot of all three of them together.
Somehow Palpatine returns.
Somehow Palpatine returns. I digress from the sequel trilogy. It's a good thing that Zach's not on right now because he'd be shaking his head, so disappointed in that.
Vomiting somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else we want to speak to in terms of James Earl Jones? I know you mentioned Dustin wanting to branch off from the Skywalker saga, and I agree. Like I think there's Star Wars is an expansive universe, and there's so many stories to tell. And I really want to go to the Old Republic. And maybe it's just more of a product.
I don't want Disney to go to the Old Republic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's kind of what I'm getting to. Like, I want to move on from that Skywalker era, but at the same time, I feel like the best moments in the recent content we've had all deal with the original trilogy or the Skywalker saga situations. For instance,
I disagree.
Well, I'm just saying, like, when I see the Ahsoka show, I love the moments that we have Hayden Christensen in there and he's fighting Ahsoka. And then when we go to the Kenobi show, we've got that scene where Kenobi confronts Vader at the end of the show. And it's like, this is the best part of the show. Now, like I said, that could be more a result of Disney's misses and I don't know, lack of what's that?
That's 100% the case.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the High Republic, man, there's some just epic moments in that. And Bogey, if you haven't had a chance to read those books, well, I could not recommend that enough.
Especially Revan.
What I do, I just get them on audiobook. My favorite thing about audiobooks is I actually know what the pronunciations of shit are.
That really does help. It really does.
Like I'm not guessing or like mispronouncing it for my entire life. Thrawn, I thought it was Thran. So High Republic's excellent. So do yourself a favor and read those. There's 4 books out in that particular. There's 4 like main books, and then there's a whole bunch of young adult stuff.
There's more than 4. There's more than 4. I think there's 3 adult books per phase, and we're on phase 3.
Adult books?
Yeah, not our late night reference. So with the High Republic, there's 3 phases. Do you know much about the High Republic stuff?
A little bit.
Okay.
They did it so back-ass words.
So they kind of took the movie route. So you know how we have the original trilogy that came first, and then they did like the prequel trilogy, and then now the sequel trilogy is out. They kind of follow that format with the High Republic. So they launched the first phase of the High Republic, which was 3 novels. I won't say adult novels. There's 3 novels, and then there's 3 young adult books, and then there's also 3 children books that go with that first phase. And then they kind of replicated that with phase 2, but they jumped earlier in time to do the prequel portion of it, and now they're on phase. Yeah. And I will say Dustin doesn't like young adult books. He kind of avoids them.
I'm not a young adult.
But I've read some of the young adult books from phase 1, and they're probably just as dark as some of the novels. But when they jumped to phase 2 and did the prequels, that stuff was a little more unnecessary. Wouldn't you agree, Dustin?
God, yeah. I didn't care about they got you so wrapped into Makian Ro,
the bad guy.
I don't want to go before that guy even existed, right? I don't need his origin story. I don't even think we need Vader's origin story, So just let's keep going. And then of course, so they put the one prequel book out, and then they're like, oh well, we messed up, and then they now put the follow-up book to the original 3. So there's a 4th book that is after the events.
But like those adult novels, or not adult novels, those novels, for the most part, are great content.
They
good reads.
Do not fuck around. Like shit gets dark and tragic. They do make the Jedi look extremely incompetent, but the Jedi are extremely incompetent. So.
Well, and I think the frustrating thing about the Acolyte show, because the Acolyte is supposed to take place towards the end of this High Republic era, and you have this show, and it only dips in to all this content Disney just built in the High Republic. They only dip into it twice. One is one of the characters, Vanessa Rowe, which was kind of a horrible casting, in my opinion. And then 2, they make reference in the show about the Great Catastrophe, which is what happens in the first novel of phase 1. But like, why have this show be during this phase and you like bring in almost nothing about all this content you built with the High Republic? Just seemed like a huge miss to me.
And it's supposed to be towards the tail end of the High Republic. So like all that stuff was relevant.
Yeah. Exactly.
Good fucking riddance.
But still read the novels. They're good. There's some good reads. And I don't know, you get some more Jedi action in there, and it kind of get a different spin on the Jedi, because this is supposed to be during the height of the Jedi. They're flourishing throughout all the systems and everything. And to Dustin's point, they're kind of, what was the term they're naive, I will say.
Yeah, naive is putting it
regarding the Jedi.
Yeah. Because nothing's been happening for a long time. They're just kind of peacekeepers and almost
bored and they need to find something to do.
Yeah, almost imperialists, because they expand into the outer regions, not really taking over, but just getting involved, I will say. But everything happens under their noses, and it's like, are you idiots? It's like it's right there in front of you, and you're not noticing these things. But they're good reads. So, have we convinced you, Bogey, to go back and watch like the Clone Wars and Rebels? Because I'm a little bit envious of you that you haven't seen all this, so you still get to experience like watching that show for the first time, because I don't know, it was such a great moment. And Dustin and I got to share a lot of that too, watching it together. But it's
like it's
great shows.
Definitely put it on the watch list, and like it's definitely gotten me hooked when you say it's only short episodes, 20 to 30 minutes max. And but again, the other part of it is like the fact that I've been spoiled. I mean, on this show, I guess being a newbie on here, do we talk spoilers? Like we kind of already did a little bit on multiple topics.
Yeah, we've mentioned many spoilers in previous episodes. So
I know about Obi-Wan's love story, and that like being spoiled on that. Watch videos on YouTube, and that hit me hard. Like I said, maybe I didn't say that earlier, but those are the two characters, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn, is what hooked me from Phantom Menace. Hooked me. Ewan McGregor, I got to do a quick shout out. Welcome to the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah.
Just got a shout out. Great actor. And even his Obi-Wan show, I was a little disappointed a little bit, but every scene he was in stole it. He was just phenomenal.
I mean, he was the saving grace of that show.
Yeah.
Anytime he was on, it was great. Anytime Anakin was on, it was great. It was more the minor details to me that were like the issue of that show.
I couldn't stand the.
What's that, Dustin?
Wasn't Leia hiding in the trench coat? That's what saved the season for me.
More like spoiled the season for you. That, and like you've got that roadblock thing, and all you have to do is walk around it, and they're like, I don't know, I won't even get into it. But continue what you're saying, Bogey.
But yeah, to go back, because like I do want to watch the Clone Wars and Rebels and all that. Again, I feel like I've been spoiled about a lot of the big moment scenes and who sacrifices themselves or who dies. Like I said, Obi-Wan's love story, Darth Maul's return. He, gets the Darksaber at some point. So I feel like I've been spoiled a lot. And then, but I've seen like the ending fight with like Ahsoka and Darth Maul, which is awesome. But I kind of wish I did it, because I'd like to go back and wish I didn't see that and kind of see the build up to that final couple episodes of the series. So, but yeah,
like eating dessert without eating dinner. You need to eat the dinner to make the dessert more enjoyable.
Dessert first. Dessert first.
Man, Colleen would totally agree with you there, Bogey. Dessert first. But to Dustin's point, I mean, I know you mentioned you know the spoilers, but in certain circumstances, like you kind of knew some of the spoilers were going to happen anyways, based off of what you know of the original trilogy. I think what makes the Clone Wars is it's not the beginning, it's not the destination, it's the journey that you take throughout that show. It's the character development, it's the lore expanding. It's not what happens to the individual characters. It's how they get to those points that really drives the impact. So I think even though you know those things, I mean, it's no different than if you started with the original trilogy, you know that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. Well, Revenge of the Sith is still one of my favorite Star Wars movies, episode 3. Like, we knew what was going to happen, but like, how did that happen makes it entertaining. So that's what I will say the Clone Wars is very similar to. Rebels, yeah, same thing. Rebels, its show itself is what's good. But yeah, they're both very much worth watching. There are some what people call filler episodes, and
Like in every show.
just like in any show,
Yep.
but a majority of the content you get out of that is meaningful and impactful to the Star Wars universe. Even like gain an appreciation for clones, like in individual clones and what they go through. And it's just very impressive, the storytelling and the writing and all of that. So
Yeah, and it was just something I think part of me, like, I feel like I'm missing is part of that chapter in between episode 2 and 3. Because like when I talk about Phantom Menace and that great opening, kind of like the beginning of the era of like every movie's got to have this like kick-ass opening scene to get you like really drawn in. Um, that scene in episode 3 when everything looks calm and peaceful, and then Obi-Wan and Anakin fly over, all of a sudden it's like they're in a war zone. And I
yeah,
was like, oh, but then you find out it's like it's at the towards the end of the war. It's like, oh, well, I want to see portions of the war.
yep.
And that's what I heard everyone saying. You got to watch the show. You
That's
really
what the
get,
Clone Wars is. That
yeah,
show.
you
That's
get
what that
all,
is.
and like you said, it might jump from here to here to here. I know there's like a little, side quests or stories with Yoda. I don't know if there's one with Mace Windu. Like like you wonder what all these Jedis are
There's
doing.
even one specific to droids where it's like, okay, wait.
That one, you're kind of like, all right, fast forward a little bit. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I would strongly recommend going back and watching those short episodes.
But
It,
going back to the other cartoons that I have seen, like going back to the Tales of the Jedi, I love that episode of Qui-Gon Jinn as a Padawan
mhm.
to uh uh why am I blanking on his name now? Now I fail. I guess I'm
Dooku.
Dooku. I'm kicked off the show now. I can't. But seeing that kind of like that story arc of how he was kind of like pushing towards, that kind of dark side, and Qui-Gon kind of stopped him. But like that chemistry and all that, I was like, I love that backstory. And something like I was like, maybe we would have never gotten it if they didn't push for that
Yep.
animation show. So
Yep.
I enjoy that.
You'll get a
So
lot more of not necessarily that character, but other characters, similar situations in the
yeah.
Clone Wars. So
Hey, Mudge, I gotta get up pretty early tomorrow, so we gotta wrap this sucker up.
wrap it up. You giving me the
I'm giving you the wrap it up box.
Dustin.
You guys can
Always the one that goes to bed early. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I agree. We probably should wrap this up. But Bogey, you did it. You made your first episode, and see, it wasn't that bad, was it?
No, it went pretty smooth. We'll see. Week 1, got the jitters out.
I'd like
Thanks,
to say
Dustin, for tolerating my antics and everything. Hopefully, I fulfilled. It's been a pleasure joining on, and hopefully, I can join on, more often down the road here.
You're
I'd like to
welcome.
say
And
in 3 years we've been doing this, we've improved, but that's not true.
no, you're of course, Ben. You're welcome anytime. Happy to have you on. Definitely, again, encourage watching all those other episodes of shows. Yeah, Star Trek. Hey, I'm sure we have a lot of listeners that would be more than happy
I'm
to
just a
hear some of
sci-fi fan.
your Star Trek points of view and
I'm a
everything.
sci-fi
So
fan.
we just might not be as not. I should speak for myself. I'm not as knowledgeable unless it's the more recent movies. But yeah. Any final thoughts from either one of you on whether it's today's episode or just in general for Star Wars?
Yeah, I want to say big congratulations to the Brewers for clinching the NL Central.
Today.
I mean, over the years, like after living in different places, I've been a diehard Cardinals fan all my life. And I'm kind of losing some of that diehardness because of the way the organization's kind of performed as of late. But I can definitely appreciate what the Brewers have done this year, and everyone pounded them out, right? Oh, they're going to be terrible this year. I mean, and a lot of things did happen to maybe warrant some of that. And I mean, look at them. I mean, I think have the largest. They've clinched. I think they're the first team to clinch
Yes.
division. So that is extremely impressive to me. I'm going to be rooting for them big time in the playoffs. And I just want to say much. I'm glad that you can be in, that you can find enjoyment in that.
Well, and I think if you're a baseball fan, people should be rooting for teams like the Brewer. That maybe I'm biased, but like a small market team versus like the Yankees.
My only counter to that, the
or
one
Dodgers,
is that there's like copycats. So now, some of these teams like the Cardinals or like, let's say, the Cubs or some outside of our division, like Seattle, or they might say, well, look at the Brewers. We don't need to spend money. And that's not necessarily true either. So anyway, just big congrats to the Brewers. I'm happy for them.
I don't know if you noticed, but my cup today was a Brewers one.
Nice.
I usually have my go-to whiskey glass, but this time I use that. So, any final thoughts from you, Bogey?
No, just glad to be on the show, and I know how it feels as being a Twins fan. Small market, small budget, and they're shitting the bed.
Hey, they
Of
still have a
course.
chance though. The wild card's still open for them.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll make the wild card, but as the last seed. Just the coaching, the decision, the staffing. I I've talked to multiple all Minnesota fans, and they're just saying, "What the hell is going on?" Like we're throwing pitchers in that shouldn't be in there in a tight game situation that usually blow games, and then we have a high caliber pitchers riding the bench, and when it's like, why? So to me, I feel like if we do blow it and not make the playoffs, Baldelli, our manager, he's out.
He's gone.
He's too much on the analytics and giving everyone like every other day a day off. It's like, or your starting pitcher has a shutout, but it's the fourth inning and he's pitched 70 pitches. Oh, time to yank him. It's like, what? Why? Are we soft?
Well,
But congrats to you guys and the Brewers. They're one of my other favorite teams, just because of the fact we don't play against each other in the same division.
I mean, being that I live in Minnesota, I root for the Twins too. I root for the Brewers first, but
yeah,
as long as we're not playing you in, or if we met in the World Series, then I'm rooting for
that
the
would be
Brewers
different
over the
story.
Twins.
But
on the way there, I'm rooting for the Twins and rooting for the Brewers. So,
but like during the regular season, when our teams play, to me, it's a good time because I'm happy either way.
Yeah, love it.
It's 1A, 1B for me because I have always loved the Brewers growing up. So as long as we don't, switch division somehow, if they make some mix up and that we're playing against each other, that might change. But again, the pull ads and the Twins kind of,
yeah,
cheap budget.
What's to hate about the ball and glove logo of the Milwaukee Brewers too? It's classic. So
I know for the longest time I like knew it was a glove,
the MB,
ball, and then only to find out it was the M and the B, and I was like, oh, it took me a minute to put it together when I was starting to follow baseball more often. I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Exactly.
Now the Twins, on the other hand, their new logo and everything, I'm like, what are we Are we the Marlins all of a sudden? Like the M.
It really does look like the Marlins, just different colors.
Like, I don't like it. I want the original, the cursive M or the TC.
I like the TC. The TC is classic.
Like just leave it like that. Why fix something that ain't broken?
Exactly. TC, that's the way to go. All right. Well, I'll speak to our business elements. So, come on, computer. Okay, so you can find us on our social media handles at Twitter at DetBlock AA23pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group and YouTube channels, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. And you can find us on TikTok now at DetBlock AA23. So bring us your subscriptions, likes, follows, downloads, ratings, reviews, all of it. We greatly appreciate any little thing that you do because it definitely helps us get our name out there amongst all the other Star Wars channels and podcasts. So hit that subscribe button. Do it. And let's one more shout out to the late and great James Earl Jones, aka the voice of Darth Vader. You will always be a legendary character, always number one villain in all my books, and that will never change. So, with that, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your evening. And as always, may the Force be with you.
And also with the Brewers in the playoffs. Let's go.
Woo! And also with Bogie for his first time on. Awesome.
Love you
Congrats.
guys.
You did great. So
Love you guys.
we'll see you next time.